Come on in, bring a chair if you need to bring a chair. We're gonna get all cozy.
Yeah, we're cozy. Let me
Here. That's David.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I'm good. How are you?
Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Thursday. It is Thursday. We're getting people on Zoom. I'll get us, hopefully we won't get bumped. Hi, Naray. How are you? Morning, morning.
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having your camera on. I do like cameras on when you're on Zoom. You know, talking to a box is not so fun. Just saying. Okay, let's hope this casting sticks while we get it going. Let's see who else comes on. Where's Connor? Connor's usually always with us. We'll just wait a second. So it is Thursday. We are on buyers. We're going to be talking about buyers today more. We did on Tuesday. So just a little recap of what we talked about on Tuesday. It's kind of the steps, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Remember, I had 5 steps on my steps to working with a buyer. And of those 5 steps, many times, what does a buyer want to do? Here comes Connor. What step do they want to start on?
Start looking.
So that's step 5. Yeah, they want to go from, they don't even want to stop at step 1.
Yeah.
They just want to go to step 5.
Right.
And here's the thing. As of August 17th, we can't take them to step 5. We can't. So we got to figure out, how do we get them to understand we have to start at step 1? Yeah, you can abbreviate it, and we're going to have a form that's going to make it, hey, bring a chair, grab a chair in there. Introduce you guys.
Almost like I don't drink, but like bring your beer. It's like bring your chair.
Yeah. BYOB. Yeah, BYOC.
Yeah.
That's cute. Bring your own chair. Come on in, Angel. I'll get you introduced.
Oh, hey.
We're being snug as bugs. We've got people online too. I want to introduce you all as he gets all settled in. Oh, this is Angel Salcido, and he is a new launch coach.
Oh, cool.
Experienced agent coming from Compass, and has a wealth of experience in his prior life. He's been a GM for Hyatt Hotels. He has his own home healthcare business. He is an entrepreneur beyond just real estate, is bilingual. So I'm so excited to have him join us. So what you all need to know is, when I bring a new coach on, I go through a KW process called career visioning. And so how many times did we meet?
6.
Yeah.
3 hours each time.
It's looking at me like, yeah, and it was 3 hours each time. All of my coaches go through the career visioning process. And it is a process that's designed also for how we hire staff and how agents should bring on people to their team. And it is about really getting into relationship and getting to know someone at a very deep level. I've known Angel for 8 years, right around there.
I think a little longer than that.
Yeah, maybe even a little longer than that. I mean, we've known each other, but not known each other. So on a, just, oh, hi, how are you? And knowing each other that way. So, but all of my coaches go through the career visioning process. And so we spend a lot of time together. He also had to go through a group interview. So did Megan, with staff, leadership staff. So it's a really thoughtful process. And sometimes when I've interviewed people, at the end of it, they'd said, I don't think this is a fit for me. Right. Or it's not, my timing is not right. That's more often. I am not ready to do this yet. So I share that with you all so that you know that I didn't just grab him off the street. You look good. Okay, come on. There's an actual process to make sure that it's a right fit, not only for him, but also for all of us.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased to say that he came through with flying colors. He did.
Yay.
And we're
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you on board.
Yes, yes. Thank you for your help.
Working with all you.
Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do something crazy like be a coach?
Well, as I explained, I was always a coach in a way. I mean, in all my careers, and being a general manager for Hyatt and converting the hotel from a American Stay to a Hyatt. I was always been a trainer. It was my responsibility to train the staff and to have a successful hotel. And in my home care business, I get to train all the new CNAs that I bring in. And I also train them to find clients. So I train them, so I'm not doing. I train them the way I want to be trained. So like that,
Yeah.
they know exactly how to be. If I'm not there, the ship can still ride, you know,
Yeah.
so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Cool. So we're very lucky to have him join us and come on board and join our team, join our launch family. So this is his first training to sit in on. So Thursdays, we have a little bit more time to dive into something. We're not just trying to pack it all in an hour. We have an hour and a half on Thursday, and then there's red class after this. Today it's wealth building. And I think it's a really powerful topic. It's talking about, some of you probably aren't thinking this way. It's about how to prepare for retirement. And can I tell you something as agents? Usually we're awful. No, there are agents who are like 90 years old, still doing real estate because they never saved up money and they can't stop working. Because when it's commission only and you get lump sums of money, if you don't know what to do with that lump sum besides go shopping, because you feel rich all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I was guilty. My first couple of checks, I was like, look at all this money. And then I realized, well, I don't have closings. You know, it's very hard to say, oh yeah, I want 2 closings a month or 3 closings a month. Well, I might have no closings this month and then have 5 the next month, right? So if you don't learn how to fiscally manage a career like this, your finances,
Yeah.
you can have a month like I did in this is how vivid it was my second year. It was August of my second year. I had 3 deals under contract. All 3 separately went down in flames, and I had nothing for the next month. After I stopped hyperventilating and pulled myself out of the ditch, I then went to the other extreme. I started hoarding all my checks. I was afraid to spend any of the money, except on the things I had to. So learning to me, and I would be like, oh, I don't. So you have to be very careful when you go under contract. You all are going to think, yes, and you're going to start thinking about how much money you're going to make off of this deal. It's human nature, right? However, you have to know that it is not a done deal till you get to the closing table. And even the closing table isn't always, it means closing table and it's funded and everybody signed.
Yeah.
Things can happen even at the closing table. So that's where you have to right now accept that you're not going to close every deal. You're not. And so that's why I think a class like this is so impactful, so that you can learn about, as a self-employed person, how do I manage my money, and how do I manage my money in a way so I'm going to have something for retirement? Because there is a vehicle like a 401k for self-employed, but you don't have anybody else supplementing it. You don't have an employer also doing it, right? So you guys need to figure this out. And the sooner you have an idea and a concept of what that looks like and what your options are, the better you'll be. Does that make sense? And those of you who are dual career, if you're thinking of making this your full-time, then all these real estate checks you're getting, you should be socking some of that away so that you have a good, healthy nest egg when you pull the trigger and go full-time, that you are not going to be in a panic if your first month or two don't go according to plan, right? You've got to have some breathing room. That's the scariest thing in this business in the beginning, is not having financial breathing room. And I can attest to it because I didn't. I had very little. And I had to run like a crazy one. The only good thing is I was scared to death, but I used my fear to just propel me. I just, wow. Not that that was healthy, but at least I didn't let it shut me down. It just made me run really fast.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what direction I was going, so I probably just like circled around. But that's why that class coming up today is so valuable. And I wanted to just take a moment and share that with you, because some of you are thinking, well, I haven't really made any money in real estate yet. Why do I need to start thinking about it? Well, you need to know what the paths are.
Mhm.
You need to understand more about this as a business, because here's the thing. In your first year, I tell you, Serenity, you're now a business owner. Do you feel like one?
No.
No, you don't. No. Thank you for the honest answer.
I was hoping the answer is yes.
No, you're just trying to take this all in,
Yeah.
and you're just hoping to survive, right? You get transactions and everything, and you're just hoping to get through that transaction, and it's just a whirlwind, right? And so you're not thinking, and I'm a business owner, so I gotta start acting like, oh God, what do I do next? We're under contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just learning the stuff. But I will tell you, definitely by your second year, you've got to start acting and thinking like a business owner. And it's better if you at least have some concept in your first year, even though it's hard to concentrate that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's okay if you don't really feel it yet, but you are. And as a business owner, then there's going to be aspects of this that you're going to have to embrace and adapt that you might not like.
Wasn't expecting.
Yeah, or you weren't expecting. So if there's some things you're not as good at, because there are a lot of agents out there that can do a great job with a client, but they're no good or not very good at lead gen. Well, they're never going to build probably a business that can be sustained, because they're not doing the lead gen part in a consistent and in a persistent manner, right? And then there are others that, oh, they can do the lead gen. They're not good at taking care of the people once they get them, and they become more transactional, so they don't ever get any referral business. Or you can be a really good agent and take good care of people, and then you get your commission checks and you blow them, and you never set aside money for taxes. Do you know how many agents are in trouble with IRS and on payment plans or haven't paid their taxes? Tons.
It's a lot.
Self-employment tax is very different
That's
than
a lot.
W-2 tax. You're
Yes,
self-employed.
you're self-employed. I had to go on the IRS payment plan.
There's a
Yeah,
lot.
so you kind of figure out how to manage that.
I
Your
didn't
quarterly
understand.
taxes.
No one was teaching me or giving me any idea.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband said, oh, it'll be fine. We'll just pay it later.
Yeah.
Thinking that wouldn't be much. We didn't set any money aside, and we were $18,000 in the hole to the IRS.
Mhm.
Well, that almost sent me over the edge, and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. Ever, ever, ever. Every month when that bill came in, I would just, oh yeah. It was nerve-wracking.
Well, I'm sorry, I
No,
don't mean to interrupt, but when I first started, I screwed up royally because I, like you, wasn't I saw this money coming in and said, oh, great, I have all this money coming in from these businesses and, anyway, got myself in trouble with the IRS, paid them back,
Yeah. Happens.
but I learned from that failure because what I did was I have now a bookkeeper, I have an accountant, and I treat my company, like you said, as a business. I have an S corp and I have an LLC. So, and that is all handled, all those monies are funneled through that. And then I also pay myself a salary like an employee. And I started
Beautiful.
doing that because I got into, it was bad.
Yeah, you think you have all this extra
I
money.
had all this extra money. And now, between the S corporation and the LLC, and I pay people now to keep all that in place for me. So, because I'm one of those that was really bad with my taxes and and also, every money that comes in, you should be stocking away at least 20% for some form of retirement. And
Yeah,
that was explained to me by my accountant and also, so I hired ADP that does my payroll system. And so ADP offers, small businesses, 401ks, so you can buy in.
Nice.
Yeah, and so these are all things that when you're running your own business, you really need to think. And I hit my head against the brick so many times. I learned.
yeah.
I have the bruises to show it.
Well, not all of us come to this career with a financial background. But guess what? You do have to figure this out. Do not ignore it is really my big takeaway to you.
Exactly.
Do not ignore it. Okay,
Okay.
is everybody ready to dive into buyers?
Get our buy-
Yes, we're gonna talk more today about the buyer presentation. We're gonna talk about, so the one thing I wanna share first is I have an email that I send out if I know that your coach will send out when you're working with a buyer. So let me share this with the Zoom world. We have quite a few people on Zoom today, which I love. Okay, I'll share screen. Here we go. So preparing to work with a buyer. It has a lot of my power tools attached to this. And most of these are on our launch Facebook page under files. Okay, so they're uploaded documents under files on the launch Facebook page. And it has these different tools for you. It even has a sample exclusive buyer agency. This is a 2023. It's not going to be that different than the 2024. And it is what we talked about on Monday on the steps to working with a buyer. So I'm going to open up that document and let's just get to where we left off on Tuesday. And I think I'm going to have to reshare screen with you all. So if I'm going back and forth for those of you on Zoom, it's because it doesn't always follow. So. And it's loading right here. Here we go. So we talked about the pre-qualifying, talking to people. What were some of the things we talked about on Tuesday that you have to keep in mind and starting to work with a buyer?
Buyers are liars.
Yes, we did talk about that. Buyers are liars. And that is what they come to us, that dream, that concept they come to us with in the very beginning is usually not what they end up with because they just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what their dollars will buy. They don't know what they can get. They don't understand the process. They don't know they're going to have to compete at a level, depending on the price point, that will make things so different. So anything else? What else did we learn on Tuesday?
I thought it was great how we were drilling down, like, what are you gonna, do you have a home office? What kind of backyard do you want? Are you gonna entertain? I mean, all of the kinds of things that, I probably would have just said, two-story and two bath.
Three bedroom, over
I
one
I
park?
probably would have just done like
Yeah.
those objective things, but not get into the subjective. And so
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Thanks. It's about how are they gonna live in the house?
Yeah.
And we need to know details of how they're gonna live in that house. If we don't know they have pets and we show them a house on a busy street, do you think that's gonna jive? No, it wouldn't for me. Be like, no, if my cat goes out the door, she gets mushed. No, we're not doing that.
Right.
My chickens will go out in the road.
I think something that stood out to me was like knowing the neighborhoods, like especially not being around Kansas City. So sometimes I'll just take drives and I'm like, okay, like in Waldo, you're gonna find like a shared driveway. I don't
Brookside
want to
too.
share anything. That's my house. And so like I couldn't get my own driveway probably, or maybe a 2-car garage, different things like that I just don't know yet, but
Mhm.
knowing the areas.
That makes a big difference too, you're right.
It does. You've got to start learning these areas. That's why go out on agent tour on Tuesdays or make sure that you're previewing houses or buy a house, and then you'll get out into
Mhm.
neighborhoods and see a lot of different neighborhoods like David is right now. So it's us gaining knowledge. We have to show that we bring something to the table that the buyers don't have access or know. Does that make sense? Because
I thought another,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
go
just gonna say another takeaway that I took from Tuesday was that, as you were kind of saying, is asking as many questions as possible so that you know what you're showing your client. And that way, if you start showing the wrong houses or the wrong price points, then they're gonna start to doubt you. And then that's where your credibility and where the whole commission thing goes into question. But that's why I think you have to ask up front as many questions so that you look reliable later on down the road.
100%. Don't think your job is, that's the other thing. Okay, so a big tendency of agents is you get their criteria and stuff, and they just put them on an MLS search, and they wait for the buyer to come back and tell them what they want to go see. That's being so lazy. That's not doing your job. Every day you should be curating that list and seeing if there's something on there and say, hey, did you see that house on 86th Street? I think that might be one we need to go see.
Yeah.
Right? Because they might be too busy, but they need to know that you're active in their search too. Because as a broker, you know what I used to hear when somebody wanted to fire their buyer's agent? Well, I'm finding all the houses. Because the agent just put them up on a search and said, well, just let me know what you want to go see. The other thing is if you're curating and talking about the houses that are coming on with them on a regular basis, then they're less likely to pick houses that they shouldn't even be going to see. Because it's harder to talk them down from a list of houses when they are the ones who solely came up with that list from MLS versus you coming up with it together. Well, they'll say, well, how about that house on Main? Yeah, I saw that house on Main. Really had a cute kitchen, didn't it? But it didn't have the fenced-in backyard that you needed. It didn't have the 3-car garage that you said that was so important. So should we really go see that? Otherwise, they'll just want to go see it because, well, do you have anything else to do than show me houses? Do you? Here's another tip. When you are scheduling to show houses to buyers, it's important you've got a start time. We're gonna start at 2 p.m. But you better tell them how long you have them scheduled for. Because there are buyers that are notorious of saying, well, you know what? After you've shown them 5 houses and they're like, you know what? I saw this other house. Could we go see it? Say, well, I just had it scheduled until 4, remember? Otherwise, they think you have all the time in the world. And while you want to make them feel like they're your only client, they aren't, hopefully. And you need to put parameters on there. Otherwise, they will keep you out. I'll give you an example. Christmas Eve. My ex-husband was an agent also, and I had sent him out to show one of my buyers, a single guy new to Kansas City, to show him houses on Christmas Eve. And we were hosting Christmas Eve dinner at our house. And Lance kept coming up with additional houses to see. And I'm like, where are you? Lance. So I said, put Lance on the phone. I said, Lance, I love you. You can come over for Christmas Eve dinner, but he's got to come home.
I mean, be
Because
reasonable people.
he's single. He's not from here. He has no family. He has nothing to do on Christmas Eve. And I'm like, it's like an hour and a half before guests are coming.
Yeah.
Stop it. So you have to put parameters, or otherwise they think you're wide open. Say, so we're scheduled to go see houses from 2 to 4. You gotta let them know. Because otherwise, and that's where you have to be so careful in these relationships with your buyers and sellers. If you're not careful, they will be more in charge than you. And they'll be calling the shots and not you. And so you don't want that, because that's not a good feeling, and reeling them back is so hard. That's why you, even before what we'll have to do after August 17th, you didn't want them to jump to step 5 and then keep at step 5. You've got to take control back and get them back so you can have those conversations with them. Okay. We talked about the buyer's agency. We talked about the 5 must-haves. Okay, let's talk about the buyer consultation appointment. Okay, here are some. Schedule a meeting. If you can, bring them into the office. Bring them into the office. It establishes your, I don't want to say authority. It establishes your professionalism, credibility.
Plus, it's a safe space to meet people you don't know,
Yes.
male or female.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. You're going to have people reach out to you, especially like right now, I'm getting bogus leads all over in my command. I don't know about anybody else, but then when I sent my little spiel and saying, thank you for your inquiry on my website. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home or interested in a career in real estate, let me know. We'll set something up. And they're all coming back and saying, well, let's get on WhatsApp. I know that that's a scam.
Yeah.
I know they're trying to either sell me something or scam me.
Or get into your system, yeah.
So I don't answer, even though they sound really legit, but the minute they say WhatsApp, I'm not, no, don't do that. But you will get legitimate leads that are not referred to you and you don't know. And so you need to qualify those people and you need to meet them someplace safe. You do. And if they won't do it, then they're not worth it. Your safety is never worth money. Ever. And so always be smart. And I say that to males and females, even you, David, big Hulk and David here.
Yeah.
It can happen, and it has. While real estate is for agents, a relatively safe business, we do some really risky practices.
Yeah.
Somebody calls us, Jeff, and say, I want to see your listing at 123 Main Street. And you're like, yeah. And you run right over to a perfect stranger. We'll take someone with you, or make them come in, or make them send you a copy of their driver's license. And if they balk at that, too bad. So sad. Do not for your hunger of needing to make some money, or your hunger to have a client, don't let it blind you.
So what do you do with that driver's license?
Well, then I'll know if I'm meeting the right person.
Okay. They also sent me a selfie one time, like a selfie and a driver's license. It
Perfect.
was really nice. They did the selfie. It was cute. And then I sent it to like my old coach at the time. Hey, I'm meeting this person at this address. Call me.
Just know where you are, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Which
you're
is
gonna do
common
your bounds
sense, kind of like the Boy Scout buddy system concept.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna recommend your kids go off by themselves with people I've never met, like you
Right.
shouldn't either. I mean,
Yeah,
you need to
just
have.
because we're adults doesn't mean we got smarter.
Right. You're still vulnerable. I always take my boys with me on all my.
She has big strapping boys
Yeah,
that.
big strapping boys. They take care of their mom.
So when you're going,
Friends,
yeah, another agent.
another agent. And
Um,
when I first got in business, Melissa and I did almost everything together.
Yeah.
We just backed each other up on everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
It
okay.
is okay. Made it much more comfortable.
Yes.
Kind of get used to how what you do at open houses and what you do at showings. It was nice to have that partner there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So we're gonna go through my PowerPoint, and then we're gonna look at different buyer presentations templates. So what you want to make certain is, and what I want to make certain that you guys are creating, one of the things we have in your 30, 60, 90-day checklist is creating a buyer's presentation. So you have the materials to use when you go on an appointment and to leave with them. Because here's the thing, do you know what we do most of the time with our clients? Repeat ourselves. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, it says you need to say it 12 times before it's fully in.
7 to 12 times
Yeah,
before it starts to sink in,
yeah,
hopefully.
It's
And
a
I
lot
bet
like
you get
teaching.
that with teaching.
yeah.
You have to repeat, you have to repeat. We do it as coaches too. Some of you, if you come to everything, you're gonna hear me repeat myself. But that's because I know the first time we're just flooding you with so much that some's gonna stick, not
Yeah.
everything's gonna
I
stick.
love it when you say it over and over.
Well, thank you, not everybody
Yeah.
else. So you've got to make sure that you're repeating and give them information they can refer to later.
Yeah,
Because some people are visual, some people are auditory, some are a mix. So we've got to make sure we've got the materials, and you don't want to be creating a buyer's presentation every time you go on an appointment.
right.
You've got to have something already in the mix and already have that template. I say, I always like to personalize mine, but I always had a grab and go.
Mhm.
Because there's going to be some situations where you're not going to be able to do the customization for a listing presentation or a buyer's consultation that you would normally like to do. Make sense?
Mhm.
So you've got to make certain this is one of the things that I want you all working on and have. So let's go through. I'm going to stop the share on Zoom, and we're just going to go through my PowerPoint. And it's not so much for my PowerPoint, it is the content that I want you all looking at. And no, it's going to be. Have it all opened up. Okay, let me just go in and get it from that email. And it opened up the did. And you can take this, so there are pre-populated templates on Command, on Canva. You can buy them on Etsy, and most of the Etsy ones are also done in Canva, so you can go and create your own. So let me share online.
Chris has got some that I have two that I got off of Etsy. And then I downloaded it, put all my personal information, and then my own headshot, my own bio, and yeah. And then I just print it off every time I meet with a buyer.
Exactly.
And they can keep that as information about me, about the buying process, what to expect. And it's very generic, but at least it's something that they can have.
Mhm.
And then I'm able to walk them through each of those steps, and it's not quite so overwhelming because they've got the steps in front of them. So I think it's very helpful. I need to print this myself.
I'll get my Zoom people back. Here we go. I'm sharing with you guys on Zoom. Wish I didn't have to go back and forth. It might make you dizzy, but that's the way it is. So, again,
Share screen instead of like, so then you could just go in and out with a screen versus.
I could,
individual.
yeah, I could do that.
That's just a random idea.
No. So I just call, and this is my actual home buyer's presentation. It would look different now because I would redo it in a Canva or an Etsy or something. But this is what I would bring up in an actual buyer's presentation when I was meeting with people. And it covers why a buyer's agent, You're gonna have to show and understand and be able to articulate this more than ever with the changes that are gonna come on August 17th of why, because here's what's gonna happen. There are gonna be some buyers who, well, I don't wanna risk that I'm gonna have to pay commission, so I'll just try to do this myself.
Mhm.
Just like FISBO sellers who think they can do it themselves. We're gonna have, I'm gonna be honest, I think we're gonna have more buyers until they see how hard it is and what risk they're taking. Just like a FISBO, that it's not working, them doing it themselves. So you've got to be able to articulate why would they ever hire you. You've got to be able to talk about all of this. I keep your bargaining and financial position confidential. I submit your offer and consult you on counter offers and give you those strategies. I disclose all known information about properties that I know. I assist with those inspections. I provide you the guidance and support throughout the process. Because just finding the house is the small thing. It doesn't feel like a small thing. But once you're under contract, there's so much that we do. So much that we do. You better have something in about fair housing. You think everybody understands fair housing and abides by fair housing. Not everybody thinks that way. And this is also where I have the conversation with the buyer and I say, now there are two things I'm not going to be having to do with a neighborhood that I am not going to be able to share with you. And it's going to actually seem a little strange, David, that I can't share this information with you, but I cannot tell you about the quality of schools. And I cannot talk about crime statistics or how safe a neighborhood is. And I know that's going to feel strange because I'm going to tell you I'm a neighborhood expert, right? But because of fair housing, those are two things that I cannot tell you and share with you. However, I can give you the links and point you to the resources so you can do your own research. Why do you think I do that now?
Cause they're gonna ask.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, come on, Leah, what would you do?
Right, right.
So when I did my fair housing, has everybody for their Missouri license done the fair housing? So I did the fair housing, and one of the videos was an agent who got caught saying, well, if it was me, I can't tell you the quality of the schools, but if it was me, I'd only go to these two school districts.
That was a PBS,
Violation.
That was a PBS special.
Yeah.
It was, they investigated a bunch of agents and
Well, it's,
fair housing, and there was, I think it was in the Chicago,
I
wasn't
thought
it?
New York.
Chicago,
But I
New
think
York.
It's one of those,
Yeah.
but you can still see it on YouTube, you can pull it up, and they were, you know, I'm a big believer in the CYA, which is.
Cover your tushy.
Yes, exactly. And this is like you, the first thing I tell them especially when when I don't know a neighborhood,
Yeah.
I say, these are the numbers you can call for the school systems, and these are, here is your nearest police station. You can call them for statistics. I said, but I cannot tell you these certain things.
Yeah.
And you have to, because, you never know when you're being recorded.
You don't. And I will tell you, there's a likelihood in your career you will get tested on fair housing
Exactly.
by testers. And I believe it happened to me when I was an agent. I got two separate emails from out-of-town buyers who found me on the internet and gave me such detailed scenarios of what they wanted. And then we're asking about schools and neighborhoods. And it was so detailed. I'd never had a
Yeah.
and I was like, and after I gave him my answer that I couldn't help them and give him that information, but here's how I can help them, and this is what I do, and you know, here's my expertise. I never heard from him again. I know for a fact I was being tested on both of those scenarios because they were just too it was like a case study, you know, it was that
The offer was
detailed.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we deal with this in other ways. I had a seller that I was helping sell their home and we got multiple offers on it. One of them came in from a family with clearly an Asian name. And the wells happened to be the best offer. My client said, well, I really don't want those kind of people buying my mom's house.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I said very candidly, it's like, well, there's this thing called the Fair Housing Act and discrimination, and they don't allow that. I was just,
I refused a
Okay.
listing because a seller said, I don't want any black people. That's not what he said. But he said, I don't want any black people buying my house. And I said, well, then I'm not an agent for you because I abide by fair housing laws.
well, I just find that offensive. Discrimination is one of my pet peeves.
So again, I know the love letters are not a thing. Can a person write a love letter that just says, I loved your house?
You can,
Potential
so,
buyer.
so, well, you have to be so careful. So we did love letters. We did. There have been times where love letters have won offers. But as a broker, I will tell you, I had a couple come and it was our listing and say, we believe we were discriminated against. We submitted a love letter with a picture of our family. They were a mixed race family, and we believe we were discriminated.
Right. Oh,
So
yeah.
no
for sure.
pictures, no, but that's why the love letters, if it can only talk about the love of the house.
Uh-huh.
But you can't say we're a family of four and I've got
Right.
2 little kids, and you can't say those things.
Could you just say, thank you for your consideration of our offer?
And this is what we love so much about your house.
And
You
nothing-
can, but there are now listing agents because of fair housing that will say, if we get any love letters, I'm gonna recommend you not read them.
Yeah.
Okay, so just avoid them at all,
Yeah.
anyway.
It's,
Just keep
I'm
it
not
out.
telling you that some agents don't still do them, but because of the issues that can come up, you can't be careful enough.
Right, or if you do it for one, you better make sure it's the same exact letter for every
Right, that
single.
you're not showing any kind of preference.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's the
every
risk.
client that you ever do, it's the same process.
Yeah.
I was instructed a long time ago from one of my mentors, not forget about the love letter.
Yeah.
Just don't even do
They're
it.
too much risk.
Or they said, get your loan officer involved and have the loan officer
Talk about the
about-
quality,
of
the
the
financial
person.
quality
of the
of the
person.
buyer, how strong they are.
Yeah.
So there's I love that. That's something my husband does a great job of, is
Yeah.
selling his buyer
Mhm.
to the listing agent and seller about how strong they are, how much they love the house,
They
but
they
it's not in writing.
They can put that in their, in their approval letter saying this is a strong candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
That's factual, it's not,
Yes.
it's not subjective.
Their name isn't on that offer, is it?
no, but the lender, a good lender, you can ask them to call the listing agent and speak
Yeah.
on how solid the buyer is.
Okay.
So that they're concurring that, hey, this is a really good buyer. This is
So
a
do
really
you
solid.
recommend that, or is that?
Yes.
that's just
Yes.
my
Well,
answer?
your loan officer is part of your team.
Yeah.
Once you get them involved.
Okay.
And you can have that loan officer call them and say, hey, I know we have a mutual client and I just want to let you know that they have a strong financial backing
Yep.
and they have the money to do this, and boom, boom, boom. Doesn't
Yep.
have to be a love letter, but it
Nope.
can be a character. They can be your character witness saying, hey, these people are strong.
They're solid.
Okay.
And that's actually so powerful, because my husband does exactly that. Has the lender call and concur what you're saying as an agent. And it can be the winning factor. Oh yeah, this is a super solid buyer. That's what we want.
Mhm.
That's what we want. And on the flip side, as a listing agent, remember, just a little sidebar, remember, the highest offer is not always the best offer. The most solid buyer with the highest offer, that's your best offer. And we've got to educate sellers to understand the highest is not always the best. There's more to that picture. Not only solid buyer financially, but their lender has to be solid. If it's Rocket Mortgage, let's just all cry. It's not gonna be pretty. So fair housing, I get it out of the way, because if you wait and then they start asking you about schools and crime, then they're gonna try to get you to, yeah, just kill that right off the bat. Finances first. So here's what we have to know. We have to know what can you buy? Here's why I don't take you out shopping before you're pre-approved. Because Jeff, if I take you out shopping before you're pre-approved, we're guessing at the price point on a house that you can afford. And if we go to a house that is more than you can afford and you fall in love, then no house is gonna look as good in your actual price range. And I've set you up for disappointment. And I will tell you, it is very hard to recover and get a buyer to look with fresh eyes their actual price point if they've been looking in one they can't afford. Because yeah, houses we can't afford have a lot of other things to them that sure look good and we want, right? But we don't have the budget for it. So that's why you have to explain to them why we're gonna get you pre-approved. And also, here's the other thing. You take them out shopping before they're pre-approved and you think, oh, we're just shopping. We're just window shopping. Can I almost guarantee there's a high likelihood you're gonna find their house? And then you don't have a pre-approval and it's a very competitive market, then we don't have our act together.
Yeah.
And so we're not gonna be competitive against a buyer that's got their act together and has got everything ready to go. And they know what strategies they're gonna use to win. We haven't even talked about offer strategies yet.
Right.
So it's not just you saying to me, here's what I want to offer. This is the price I want to offer. There's so much more to it. We haven't even talked about offer strategies. And so again, I'd be setting you up to lose. And then we're going to start spoiling what should be a really good, positive experience. You're going to have bad vibes and bad experiences right off the bat. I don't do that with my buyers. I don't. Can you see the conversations I'm having while we're hitting these key points?
Yeah.
I'm going to also say, here's probably one of the most important things we talk about before we go out shopping. And Megan, that's how much money are you going to have to take out of your pocket during this process? Because as a buyer, I know most likely you've been thinking about down payment, right? And that's probably been your biggest worry. Do I have enough for a down payment? Okay. Well, there are other things you're going to have to pay for before you close on this house. And if you don't know that, and if you don't have that money in your pocket, we're going to get too far down the road. These are going to be bad surprises.
Well, and it's so helpful because I'm your client saying, yes, we have that $20,000 that we're gonna use for our down.
Yes.
You're like, okay, great. So you as the agent, like, we got 20 grand. I'm like, need to ask them, what kind of account is that $20,000?
Yes.
Is it a bank account or is it an IRA? Oh, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Bank account's accessible, the IRA is not. That requires a lot of paperwork to take the money out of there. And depending on their age, they may not be able to do it. I mean, they don't know these things. They're thinking maybe I can just borrow against it. Well, it's not a 401k. I mean, so there's all these parameters that you have to navigate with your buyer to make sure that money is actually accessible.
Yeah. And do they have more than
And
the
do they
down
have-
payment?
Right.
For do they even understand what earnest money deposit is?
Exactly.
It's a good faith gesture to the seller that they've got some skin in the game. And it actually goes as a credit to the buyer. The seller does not get to keep it unless it's non-refundable. And there are some offers being made that there are non-refundable just to win. Again, a different strategy.
Mhm.
And if a buyer chooses to walk away from the contract and not in one of their legal windows in which they can cancel, they could maybe forfeit that money. Okay. So don't ever say, oh, your earnest money will always be returned to you if we cancel, because that's not true. That's not true. It has to be mutually agreed to in the cancellation. And sometimes I'm going to tell you the seller's pissed that you canceled the contract. And they're going to say, no, we're not going to. Now, it doesn't mean they get the money. It just means money gets held. until either you come to agreement, both parties come to agreement. Sometimes they'll say, okay, so let's just split it. And sometimes sellers say, okay. Sometimes the sellers say, hell to the no.
Mhm.
And then you have to go to court, you have to go to small claims court to get it released. Because a title company, you can't, David, you can't go if there's a dispute about the earnest money, dealing with a cancellation of contract, you can't go to the title company and say, oh no, we're due it. Because they're not going to play judge and jury. They're just not. They're not going to take on that liability. So it's going to be held. It's going to be held, right? So you've got to understand that most of the time, yes, your earnest will be returned to you if you cancel the contract, but there could be circumstances in which it becomes a dispute.
And this does go toward the down payment.
It goes towards the, yes.
Yes, the owner's money does.
Inspections, do they have money for inspections? And so I tell them, let's say $800 to $1,000 for inspections, and the older the house, the more inspections most likely you will want and need to do. And do you have enough money that if we do inspections on that house and you decide to cancel because of what was found, do you have enough money to come up with another $800 to $1,000 on the next house? And a lot of them don't have that money.
And inspections, a lot of folks thinks it's a flat rate. It's not. First thing, it's always square footage. They want to know how large that house is that they're inspecting.
Yes.
So it can vary.
Yeah, it can, that's why it can vary between.
Yeah, size is another good point. Appraisal, they have to pay for the appraisal.
Mhm.
It used to be that lenders didn't have you pay until closing, but then guess what would happen? Then a buyer would either cancel the contract or go with another lender before closing, and the lender was stuck with the appraisal.
Mhm.
Okay, so now you gotta pay for it. Do they have the money for that?
How much is that?
Oh, six,
Last one I had them was $650.
yeah, $600 to
More
$700.
than they used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down payment, we know about that. Closing costs and prepaids. Okay, so if you were at Wednesday Night Warriors last night, Shane did a great job talking about how you build a relationship with a lender as an agent, and then how he handles a client in the beginning, what conversations he has with them and everything. And they're talking closing costs and prepaids. Closing costs are all the costs that are associated with closing the loan and the transaction. The prepaids are the upfront payments you make to start your escrow account so that the lender can pay your taxes and insurance at the end of the year. So they usually do 2 months prepaid. Every buyer has to pay 1 year in advance of homeowner's insurance upfront, 1 year. And then usually 2 months of payments to start that escrow account, to get it started. So what I explained last night in Wednesday Night Warriors is that escrow account is kind of like a savings account, is you got to put a little money into the savings account in the beginning to get it going. And that's what the prepaids are.
So if it's a $300,000 property, that's what they agreed on price.
Mhm.
How much would the prepaids be
I don't know.
I
I don't know.
It's
It's insurance and taxes. And so I don't know those.
I mean, so it's a whole year of homeowners insurance. cash,
And
Or that's within the.
And then
limit.
the closing, it's your closing costs. It's part of your closing costs is that 1 year
Yes.
of homeowners insurance. And then the prepaids are the start of your escrow savings account. So they're going to take 2 months, about 2 months of insurance payments, monthly payments, and 2 months of taxes to start that escrow savings account.
But that's rolled into the loan, that's not cash. No, that is cash.
These are
Okay.
closing costs. Prepaids are paid at the same time as closing costs. These are costs that they will have on closing day, along with their down payment.
So is it in the ballpark of like 1,000 or
I-
10,000?
Well, I don't know because taxes are different. It's on the price of the house and this, yeah, so.
I guess I need to look that
Yeah, you
up.
always
Well,
have to
no,
look at
you're
the
not gonna
taxes.
know.
You're not.
Every house has
Because-
different taxes.
And every house has different insurance.
Okay,
Insurance is not only, it's based on, there's different qualifiers for insurance. Zip code.
Zip code.
Did you know?
So,
Yeah, square footed. Also, did you know every house and every person has an insurance history? So if a house has had excessive claims on it, you may not be able to get affordable insurance.
Mhm.
so does the lender help them through this, or do they need to contact? the homeowner?
Insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Home insurance, great questions.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to have insurance ahead of time.
Yeah.
The-
You're,
The insurance company will tell you when's your closing date. They'll ask for all that information.
Mhm.
And because the insurance company will send the cost to the closer.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
so you've got to know, that's why, see how many people have hands in this transaction?
a lot.
A lot. You do not have complete control. So if you're a control freak, get over it. You only have control of what you have control of, but you do have to supervise everyone else and make sure they're on track as a project manager. So you can't go hands off and say, well, you, Mr. Insurance Guy, you're doing your thing, and lender, you're doing your thing. I don't need to check on you. Oh, no, you got to check on all of them. You got to check on all of them. So these are the things I want to make sure that I'm not taking you out shopping unless I know you have the money to do all of this.
Mhm.
Because then we're just, it's not worth my time and it's not worth their time. So
Mhm.
those people who want to go to step 5, I just want to see how, just see how.
Yeah.
Now in the beginning, I know you're going to show them, and I know that for a fact. I know how this works. You're going to be so giddy and you're going to go show a house without doing all of this. I get it. But after August 17th, you have to at least talk about what it costs to work with you.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I just go through some guidelines and just touch on these. We're going to talk about, do you have a house to sell? I would have asked that when they first contacted me. And here's where I screwed up as a new agent. I thought that if they were going to have me help them buy their house, well, of course they would use me to help them sell their house. Well, I made the wrong assumption because they didn't know I could do both. And so I made assumptions on that first scenario like this. The first time I worked with a potential buyer seller, we talked about the buying of the house because that's how they came to me first, was wanting to see a house. And I just made that assumption. And then by the time I wanted to start talking about, their house to sell, they were already taking care of that. And it can be the other way around, a listing, and you don't talk about helping them buy. They can go out and buy. I had that happen too in the beginning. I did all the mistakes. I had no one training me. I was just out there loose and dangerous. Making all the crazy mistakes. So,
So what if they're saying, I wanna buy my house first before I put it on the market, my current one on the market?
okay.
At least you've had that conversation.
Oh, we have to have that conversation because in this market, it's very hard to be a contingent buyer. So what I'm going to tell them is then we need, because of the market and multiple offers, and there's a high likelihood in your price point that we're going to be competing with other buyers. As a contingent buyer, you have little to no chance of succeeding. That's why you're going to need to talk to your buyer and see if you can get like a bridge loan. Bridge loan is a loan in which, depending on your finances and everything, that a lender will give you a loan to buy the new house until you can sell the old house, so that your offer is not contingent on the sale of this current home.
Right, okay.
Okay, and not everybody can qualify for a bridge loan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I won't take a contingent buyer out shopping until we've had that bridge loan, until they've talked to a lender, because even if we get a seller to accept a contingent offer, any non-contingent buyer can come and knock them out of position if they don't have their house under contract, their current home. And so, when that moment comes, like I had a listing, we had a contingent buyer was our first offer. And they got kicked out. Every single one of my listings in which we accepted a contingent offer, that contingent buyer got kicked out by a non-contingent buyer. That's the risk they take in making that offer, right? So we've got to have that conversation. That's why I need to know about their present home, and I would have already been asking those questions.
So when you have a contingent offer, where and when do you learn about a bridge loan that they've already been qualified for?
When they tell me they have a house to sell.
Yeah.
I want to know, well, can you buy without selling that house? And if they say no, I say, well, okay, that means you're contingent. And then you need to have a conversation with the lender to see what your options are.
Mhm.
Because if you're just a straight contingent buyer, we're gonna have a really hard time getting our offer accepted.
Right.
We really are, unless we find a house that's been on the market a while, or there's just a challenge. It's not, it's not a cream puff.
Right.
It's not something everybody else is in line for.
Well, I get that perspective from a listing agent, but I'm kind of thinking of reverse, like if
Yeah.
I'm the buyer's
Yeah.
agent, so then if I have one that is contingent, where and when and how early can I put in the bridge loan so that there aren't reservations with going with this offer?
When I'm doing this and saying we got to get you with a lender, even if they're pre-approved, came to me pre-approved, if they tell me that they're pre-approval, because it'll say on the pre-approval if it's contingent on the sale of their current home. And I say, here's what we have to talk about, Jeff, in this market. That's really hard to be a contingent buyer. I'm not going to tell you it's impossible, but I'm going to tell you for a really beautiful cream puff house that other buyers, non-contingent buyers are going to be lining up for, you're probably going to be last in line. So I want to know, do we have other options before we go out shopping and writing offers that would make you more competitive? And one of those is a bridge loan, and I want you talking to your lender. You already got pre-approved. We know you're contingent on the sale of your home. I want to know, and I want you to know if you would be even comfortable with that. But first, we got to see if you even qualify for it.
And then
So with the bridge loan, that
Uh-huh.
makes you more competitive. Does that still bring you down a notch, or is that
No.
keep you right as competitive as everyone else with the bridge loan?
Competitive as everybody else, because
Okay.
you don't have any contingent requirements of your loan. So yes, it makes you competitive.
Okay, sounds good.
Because
Thank you.
really, it doesn't say bridge loan when you're making your offer. It'll just be a loan.
just says you're able to
Make up, yeah,
bring the money to the table.
yep.
When what you had noted on the previous slide about protect your own confidential info, what did you mean by that?
Well, they've got to be making certain that they're not, if they go out an open house or what have you, one, I protect their confidential information. So if I know that they have more money in the bank than what they're offering, I'm not to tell that. I'm not to tell that. What you're going to find is agents tell too much. And you guys are going to do it. And I know what happens. You're talking to your peers and you're saying, oh, my listing just went under contract and we got 10,000 more. And we didn't have to pay any closing costs. You're going to give all the terms. Legally, we are not supposed to be telling anyone, tell your coach or the contracts coach, because we got to help coach you through this, but you can't be telling your peers. And here's why. If that doesn't close and it falls apart, you don't know if one of us will have a buyer tomorrow that your house might, and we already know what your seller will accept. Right? So you are not to be saying how much, when you go under contract, you are not to be talking about the terms in which you went under contract with a buyer or a seller to your peers. You're not. You can say, oh, we got a great offer. Oh, I really did well, because you don't know. You don't know that your buyer may then, they cancel that offer you just talked about, that and they had cash to go 20,000 over, then David might have a listing that they go to next. And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember what Leah said about this buyer. They're really in a good financial position, right? But as agents, because you guys are peers and you're talking about all of this, we've got really loose lips.
Mhm. Yeah, I never know the rules, like, because my one selling, I didn't know if I could say anything.
You can't
And
unless
then
your
they said,
client
"Well,
said,
can say
you can-
whatever the client says you can,
Exa-
wants you to say, so I'm like, so.
Hmm.
Yeah, what
But
do you
you-
want me to say?
Well, you're
Yeah.
giving away leverage too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But you
Exactly.
also have fiduciary responsibility.
Well-
Because when we were selling our house, our agent, we had a private conversation about our minimum. And then oddly, we got offers coming in at the minimum. And it's like, seriously? Like,
wow.
yeah, so that wasn't kept confidential.
Yeah. Listing agents, there's too many that have really loose lips. And that's why when I'm making an offer, I'll call David as a listing agent and say, hey, David, what can you tell me about this house and the seller? What's important to them? What would they like to see in an offer? Some agents will tell you everything. Oh, and you know what? They're going through a nasty divorce.
Always call first, you never know what information they're gonna
And
get.
that, you're assuming that they've had the conversation with the seller and the.
No, I'm
seller-
not. I'm not, because some agents, this is coming out.
Blah.
Now, can we, in our listing agreements, it says, can we disclose if we have other offers and the terms of those other offers? So if I have, instead of saying highest and best, because I don't think that is I think that's a lazy listing agent technique. I would then say to my seller, if we get competitive offers and they're all good offers and they're over list price, are you okay with me sharing with the others what our highest offer is? So that buyers can come to the table with their highest and best instead of just guessing. Because there's nothing worse as a buyer's agent and they've said highest and best and your buyer's like, well, what should we do? And you don't know. We're guessing.
So say that again, you're okay with what?
I'm okay if the seller has agreed that I can disclose what the terms of the highest offer is to the other buyer's agents that are wanting to make offers. Now, if it's below list price or what we've agreed to, then strategically, I'm not sharing anything, right? It's all about strategies.
One is the buyer agents, it's so nice, because you've been experiencing this, trying to buy a home. It's like, if the house is at 400 and my client's budget is 400, let's say. Well, it's nice that that selling agent will let you know, oh, we already have an offer at 425. So don't even, you don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna get it. It's nice to, if they're courtesy, they have some courtesy just to let you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need any more details, just what's that highest number? Because if I can't beat it, then we're gonna keep moving on.
Well, and when you call the agent, they'll typically tell you, like the one I called for the house I was trying to buy, I was not at their asking price, and I said, well, how's the offer look? Are there space to negotiate in other places that your seller may want? And he was like, it's a really solid offer. I was like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
We've decided on this unless something higher comes.
Yeah.
And so anything lower, it's so strong, there's no point. And like, whether it's the closing date or, the finances piece or contingencies or inspections or whatever box they're checking on that.
Yeah.
That allows you to negotiate, but there's some things that you have to ask. And you're talking to another agent, so it's not like they've never heard this before.
Right. Don't.
You're not talking to an amateur, hopefully, that
Yeah.
has no idea what they're doing.
So when escalation clauses are in effect, can you say is an escalation clause? And I mean, would the seller disclose that?
Well,
information?
here's the thing on escalatory addendums. If you're going to accept an offer that has that, and you have to prove what they beat out. You have to show that other contract to the escalatory buyer. That if they said, we'll go 1,000 over your highest to win this, then they have to show you what that offer was that they beat. It's in the form that you have to show. You can't just say, yeah, we had one. Yeah.
after the fact or during?
No, during the fact.
During the process.
You have to
Okay.
disclose that.
Okay.
So can you see why that if we don't have some of these discussions before we go out shopping, that we're not putting people in a winning position
Yeah.
and this isn't a market to play in
Right.
and or play dress up.
I mean, if we have these questions and we've been through class, like they're pretty uneducated. So they don't
Yes.
even have knowledge most of the time.
They don't know what they don't know. They're coming in blind. And that's why we have to show them here. This is why we have these conversations.
Mhm.
Because I don't want you seeing your dream house and us not having our act together and have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want the first time I talk to you about a appraisal waiver and covering the gap with extra money. I don't want that conversation to be the first time when we're writing the offer, because you're gonna be so stressed, you're not gonna think clearly, right?
When we bought our home, the only thing I remember discussing is price. I didn't know there was terms. in school
Yeah.
with my class. So I was like a year and a half later, I'm like, man, we could have asked for this.
You're like, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, as consumers, we don't
Yeah.
know. That's why they need us. Okay, so other things, I do say make a serious offer. So here's the thing, in this market, while you might want to try to see if you can win this house and make a low ball offer, I'm gonna tell you, that is not a good strategy. That's not a winning strategy. I liked what David wanted to come in lower than their list price based on the condition, based on the comps he'd been seeing. But in this market, even those comps and what he'd been seeing, if there's a buyer, a house is worth what a buyer will pay. And so our comps help us, but in this current market, your comps are not as solid as they used to be for us. They're not as much as good guidance for us. I wish it was, but it's not, because people are making crazy offers to win. And so looking at what's happened in the last couple of months is an indicator, but it's not what it could be different today from last week. That's what's so
Yeah, I
crazy.
reached out to a potential. He's looking in the river market, and so I reached out to a house that had already gone or loft and said, "Can you tell me more about the winning offer?" And he said, I would say, advise your buyer to come very early on the very first day and be ready to go.
Come in with,
Very early on
with
the
your
very
very,
first day.
yeah, with your very best impression.
Yeah.
First impression, very best offer. It's not, yeah. So serious offer, perform inspections. I know. So ideally, as buyer's agents, you never, ever, ever, ever want a buyer buying a house without doing inspections. However, in this market, to win a house, a buyer may feel that they need to do that. So, but you do not miss the opportunity to tell them how serious it is, and how important it is to do inspections. And if they choose not to do them to win the house, then we actually have on Dot Loop a form about inspection disclosures. It's not required, but I would always have them sign that form, because they're now saying, I understand I should have done all of this and I'm not. Because if you don't, you've got to really, so don't just say, well, you should do inspections. No, I'll tell buyers, there are a couple things I'm really passionate about. Inspections are one of them. We'll arm wrestle and I'll take you to the mat because I feel that strongly about it. Now, at the end of the day, Serenity, it'll be up to you whether you do them or not to win this house.
Yeah.
But that's how important I feel they are.
Mhm. What if they keep losing because they're choosing not to do the inspection waiver?
Okay, so you have to have that conversation of what's been the consistent factor in us not winning.
Yeah.
And so then we have to change our strategy. So they don't want to waive inspections, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want them to.
Mhm.
So, and are the houses usually the cream puff houses that everybody else wants? Okay, so then maybe we have to look for a house that needs some more love.
Okay,
Because in our competition, we're not gonna be in a line.
yeah.
And maybe we need to find something that's been on the market a little longer. And that has good bones.
Yeah.
And you need to do something too.
Well, and you have that second box where you can get an
Yeah, box
inspection
number two.
and you're still buying it, so
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
still get the inspection, but you're still locked into the buy. And that's the in between there is, I feel like sometimes it's inspections and negotiation, or just to sell out and I'm buying it as is,
Yeah.
with nothing. And you have that second box that
Or
gives
the-
you that in between.
Or the first box
Yeah.
that says, but on the second box, you cannot cancel.
First,
So you get to do your inspections for information purposes, but then you have to have the conversation. If they found something major,
You can't back out.
you cannot back out. Are you okay with that? And that's the conversation of, if they're a first-time home buyer and we found major foundation or like a sewer line, do you have $10,000 to $20,000 to repair those types of things if they came up on those inspections? And if they don't, then it's probably not a financially a good deal. So we've got to have a different strategy on the type of house we look for.
So I have a quick
Yes.
story.
Yeah,
I had a client and I helped my client purchase his home. And my client kept losing because inspections.
Okay.
He finally said to me, I am not going to do inspections. I said to him, at least, I guided him and said, get the inspections, or at least do box number 2 where you know what's wrong with the house.
yeah.
He says, no, I'm doing no inspections. And I said, okay. I said, I need you to sign this form saying your disclosure, and we're still friends.
We're still friends,
But-
however.
But let me tell you what happened now. Few years later, he calls me and we talk and says, Angel, I want to put my house on the market because I want to move to a condo. The house had no inspections, remember, he
Right.
bought it without an inspection.
Oh, no.
The front sewer line from the house
To
to the front yard was detached in 2 areas.
Oh,
It cost him $17,000 that we had to reduce the price of the house by.
yeah,
So a
that's
new
surprising.
client can buy the house and use he had to put the money in, leave it in the closing.
mhm,
So
And
the
broken.
new buyer can fix the line.
absolutely.
And these are certain, you should always encourage your clients to do inspections, because what I do is I say, hey, Joe, you're buying this house was built in 1895. You think we should get an inspection? I said, yes, and that's how I handle it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I always bring up the price of it. I always bring up the year of the house.
Yeah.
Because anything that's over 200 years old, get an inspection.
50 years old.
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Seventies.
on a previous closed deal of the house,
Mhm.
are those inspections made public or is that closed?
No, they don't have to, if those were the inspections they did to buy that house, they don't have, no, those, because
the-
they've lived in the house.
Of a potential property you're interested in, or like if I'm interested in 102 Broadway and it's sold in 2002,
No,
I
no,
don't get the.
No, you do
information.
not get the
Okay.
No,
inspection.
but think about it, if he represented him in selling it and the owner disclosed what the problem was, then you would be,
He
Have
has
to
to
disclose
disclose it.
yeah,
Yeah,
you would have
as
to
an agent,
disclose what he didn't
Right.
wanna
When
spend
we
the
have that
money
knowledge,
to go get the inspection over.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
can you see, that's why in this buyer consultation, and I got to the point of not calling it a buyer's consultation to consumers. Cause that sounds so formal,
Yeah.
right? So I don't, so when you hear me say this over and over, a buyer's consultation, I just say we need to sit down and chat so we can put together our strategy to get you a house, right? So we've got to have our act together. It's a game plan. We've got to sit down, and that would be good. So David, with your coaching background, use it in sports terms. We're going to have that game plan. We've got to know what our plays are, right? And people use it in language that they can connect with. If we use it in agent terminology, then it can feel too overwhelming. It can feel too, oh my gosh, this sounds like an interrogation, not a consultation.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make it sound like, here's what we're going to do. Then telling them what they have to consider in neighborhoods. I also, here's something that, so I love this quote is even more relevant now than it was when I used it. The house that you looked at today and want to think about tomorrow could be the same house that someone looked at yesterday and thought about until today. So we can never assume there's not someone else who wants this house, even if the house has been on the market 50 days and nothing has happened. Can I tell you that it's like sometimes the stars align up above a house that's been on the market a long time, or a new pool of buyers come into the buyer pool,
Mhm.
or they've had a price reduction, so it got in front of some new eyeballs. So we can never assume, especially in this market, that's the other thing you're gonna have to prep your buyers for. Are they good at making quick decisions? I mean, that's gonna be a question I'm gonna ask you, Serenity.
Yeah.
So here's a scenario for you as a buyer. We find the house that you love,
Mhm.
and we're only gonna be in that house maybe 30 minutes at the most. And they're gonna tell us that maybe they need all offers in by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Are you gonna be comfortable making a decision that quickly?
What if they say no?
Then this is gonna be a hard market for you, Leah. And so let's talk about that. How can we get you there? Because it's not gonna be me pushing you and trying to rush you. It's the circumstances we're gonna be stepping into. And so it's my job to prepare you for that. So you won't be like, it's gonna be stressful, no matter what, and exciting. But I've got you to be, if I can get them usually to think about it in advance, then it's not such a stressor. It's still gonna be stressful, but
Yeah.
at least they know, oh, we might have to make a decision in like a couple of hours on a house.
Mhm.
Can you do that? Because some personalities, it'll kill them to do that. They can't. Well, I don't know. I need to think about it. Well, then we probably won't get the house. Because the listing agent just told me they already have eight showings on it, and this is the first day, or 10 showings on it. This is the first day. So I got to prepare people. You see how we have to set the expectations and go over it and over it and over it. And maybe this doesn't happen in just one meeting. Maybe this is something that that's why, and so let's keep going because we're getting towards the end.
Do you mind sharing this?
It's in my Power Tools,
Okay.
What's it?
and it's on
called?
Facebook. It is the ABCs of home buying.
I was trying to look it up for everybody. I couldn't. remember.
I talk about negotiating a contract. I'll repost it on Facebook
Okay.
under files, because then it brings it up.
Yeah.
Research the property. I talk about kind of what we'll do. I talk about the inspections. I talk about title insurance. What is that? You're going to have to pay for title insurance. And in every transaction in which there's a mortgage, the seller has a title insurance policy and the buyer does. And the buyer's is actually, you're going to be paying for one for your lender.
Mhm.
It's not for you, it's for your lender, but that's part of what you have to pay for. And that's so that if anything pops up after you close and somebody else says, oh, this is my house, not yours, that you've got insurance to protect you against that not having been found. I tell them a little bit about the appraisal. And the reason I have printed materials to send to them is I can't spend as much time on all of these. I will as we start going through the process. So I'm going to revisit all of the stuff until we close. So don't think it's a one and done.
I sat on the stairs the other day with my buyer while we're doing the inspections. Okay, let's look at all the documents again here. So what, just walk her through the process. This is what's gonna happen next. And remember, these are the numbers we're looking at. We gotta, just all those little things, because there's so much information you give them in the beginning.
How much is an appraisal usually?
600 to 700,
okay,
6
yeah.
to 7. I actually give a buyer, when we're talking about writing a contract, I send them a blank sale contract. And I do the same for my seller because I don't want that. I don't want the first time for you to see this document is when we're writing it and I'm asking you to sign it and we're under the gun.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean they're gonna read it, but at least I've sent them a 16-page document, just the sales contract. That's not all the other documents that go with an offer, right? So I actually I give my buyers a blank sales contract.
Yeah.
Cause I don't want the first time that I'm having to explain everything to them when we're writing an offer. We don't have time to mess around.
Mhm.
We gotta get her done. And if you've got an engineer type personality, then you better be giving them those documents in advance. Definitely, because they'll be going through it line by line.
Mhm.
It's painful, at least for my personality, it's painful.
It's painful being married to one.
So after I go through all of this, then I'm gonna say, hey, Leah, you've already heard this script, but I'm gonna say it again. Do you like to do online shopping?
I love it.
Okay, so now that we've talked and you've told me how you want to live in this house, what's important to you, we're gonna do some online shopping. So I've picked out a couple of houses for us to look at. And we're gonna go room by room, and I want your reactions to these different rooms, the styles, the floor plans, the amenities, all of that. Because that starts giving me a better indication if what they told me they want aligns with what they visually react to. Because that's where the buyers are liars. It doesn't always match. Like for a long time, if you asked me what my favorite color was, I'd say it's turquoise. Until a good friend of mine said, well, Kristen, your wallet's purple, your keychain's purple, your mouse is purple. I'm like, yeah, I really do like purple.
Well, your client.
Isn't that funny? I mean, I wouldn't tell you that purple is my favorite color, but when I go shopping, I have a tendency to buy purple.
Well, you don't know, your clients do have a vision, your buyers, of what they want, but
Right.
until they walk into that house and they see that vision, like, well, this is not actually what I was thinking.
Yep.
I really do like, this kind of open concept instead of, I'm not doing a garage entrance to the basement. Then they start noticing things about the different home styles and you can hone in better on what they really do want.
Yeah.
Because their vision is not always what the reality turns out to be, once they
Definitely.
see the homes. Yeah.
Okay, Zoomers, everybody on Zoom, what are your takeaways? What are your questions? Don't all talk at once.
When do you present the agreement?
Ah, that's where I am talking about that.
Is that in this meeting right here?
Usually,
Really?
yeah.
Okay, so this is like.
Well, now it has to
Now it
be.
has to be,
So
you
what
can't show them a house.
number-
So usually, actually, and I do it in the beginning. I do not wait till the end to bring it out because that's me just hoping that they're gonna say yes. I'm actually showing it to them when we're talking about why they would want to hire an agent.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about it and then I'm saying, are you ready to hire me at the end? So I've already talked about the buyer's agency and what my commission is and everything else when I'm talking about. So I believe don't pain yourself and wait till the end to talk about that. I'm talking about it when I'm talking why you should hire me and an agent. Any questions online? Nure?
I don't have any questions, but my takeaways are plan for your future. Buyers are liars. Don't let them jump you from 1 to 5. Make sure they go through all the steps. Make sure that you get everything in writing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thorough, I like that.
Autumn has a comment. She says, I've been working on my presentation the last few days, so this is all extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
Olgie, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't think so. I mean, overall, I think it's all really important stuff. Make sure you're doing everything you can on the back end so that the client sees your value and you're prepared. And as you said, you need to make quick decisions and you always want to be ahead of things. So it was just all very good, meticulous things to keep in mind. So thank you.
Okay, here's your homework, everyone. And I didn't get to show you the other samples, but go on Command Designs and look at those buyer presentations, see if that's one you want to use, or Canva or Etsy. And I want you creating your own buyer's presentation now. Don't wait until you have a buyer. You need them now. And like I said, you need to grab and go, and then you need to be able to customize it if you have the luxury to do that. Okay? Because I don't want you waiting, getting your first buyer and going, I got a buyer. And then, oh, I don't have anything to share with them. Don't wait. What happens with you as new agents, and I was the same way, so it's not, it happens. We wait, we think we have time because we don't have that buyer right now,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Well, now is the time you do these activities, is so you're not waiting, because when that happens, things can start moving really fast, and then you're behind. You're not ahead. Make sense? Okay, so yes,
Okay, sorry, one other question. So if you do have a potential buyer client interest, what your main takeaway is to come prepared and have all of these things listed in a neat PowerPoint with a bow on it, or a
Yes.
booklet or something, just to make sure that you have everything set expectations. And also, just to reiterate, you said the highest offer is not always the best offer.
correct.
It's the solid
Strongest
buyer
buyer.
and the highest. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the best
So-
term.
the
Sometimes
best
for your
term.
seller, sometimes for a seller, the close date is more important than the dollars if there are similar offers.
Yeah.
If you can meet their closing date, that's why when writing an offers, that's one of the questions I always ask a listing agent. Does your seller have a preference in closing in possession? Because then I know I can, if my buyer can match that, I have at least one winning point in my offer. And it's not, it doesn't diminish the seller's negotiating ability to disclose that. Make
This
sense?
was really great. Very
Yeah,
Okay.
very helpful.
know it's a
So
lot.
if you had, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead,
One
Olga.
more question. I was
Yes.
just gonna say, so if you had one main thing going into a buyer consultation, what would your main thing to bring to the table takeaway be?
Well,
A folder.
yeah.
Everything.
It is, do I know, as an agent, your takeaway should be, I have to be prepared and I need to be practicing now and not waiting. Because if I wait, then I'll never be ready. And then I'm gonna put myself into the fire. And you have
Mhm.
buyers that you're gonna be starting to work with. So for you, it is getting a grasp of all of this, understanding the buyer's agency, the sale contract, all of that. You guys have to know those things. And you gotta be, don't put it off. Do not put it off. You don't have time. I want all of you to assume you're gonna get a buyer or seller tomorrow.
Okay.
Honestly, you can put in the group meeting. That's what I consider to somebody to practice with,
Yes.
especially like.
Who wants to practice? I mean, if you practice with each other, it's awesome. So I gotta go to another meeting. So thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Kristen.
Always